Another windy, dry day in Colorado means another day of wildfires across our state and another scare in Boulder. But this time the county has the ability to alert more people.
He thought it was an oxy. He was told that it was an oxy. So when I had asked him, I was like, "Are you sure that this is what it is?" And he said, "Yeah." He's like, "I trust her."
Her husband died after someone gave him a pill laced with fentanyl. Now she wonders why the police won't make an arrest. Usually people sue to get their names on a ballot. A group of voters in western Colorado is suing to keep a name off. And a few of you pointed out I've put on a few pounds. Made me reflect on the power of words, especially when they fly pretty quickly out of a keyboard. I'm Steve Stager in for Kyle. This is next. Another day of wildfires across Colorado with devastating consequences. Mandatory evacuations in Boulder County today for the third time in less than a week because of a wildfire. Those evacuations, though, have now been lifted. The Table Mountain fire is burning near Nelson Road, west of Longmont. The fire has burned more than 50 acres so far, but firefighters say that they have made significant progress on that fire. Boulder County sent its first ever wireless emergency alert. That's the Amber Alert style message, automatically goes to all the phones within an area. You'll recall the county took some heat for not using that system during the Marshall Fire. The sheriff acknowledged that today's message went to phones beyond the geographic area it mapped out, but that's what's expected with the older technologies of cell phones that exist out there. The key was that the message sent was very clear about the area that was being evacuated. No reports of structures lost as of yet in Boulder County, but Monte Vista was not as lucky. Monte Vista is northwest of Alamosa, south of Saguache. A fire broke out near the heart of town this afternoon. The Alamosa Valley Courier reports that at least 16 buildings were damaged or destroyed. Monte Vista City Manager Gigi Dennis described the moment she saw the fire.
So I just saw this humongous black roll of smoke, and then I saw high flames, and we called right away, and the response time was really, really fast.
Some evacuations have been lifted for people living in that city. Those who can't return home yet are being told to go to the Sky High complex. Families never touched by addiction have found themselves talking about illicit fentanyl. In Evans, Colorado, one family wished they'd had these conversations sooner. Here's Katie Eastman.
With 4 kids, 2 turtles, and a kitten,
Play nice.
the Ramirez household can get a little chaotic.
Are you happy, boy?
But around Chelsea Ramirez's neck is always the reminder that her home should be a little louder.
It's got Nacho's ashes in it, so he always clings to it, and I'm like, "Oh."
Ignacio Ramirez, Nacho as she called him, was her husband, their dad.
He was very loud and obnoxious, but in all the best ways possible.
On August 11th last year, Chelsea realized he was too quiet. Nacho died after taking a pill she says he thought was oxycodone, but that pill was laced with fentanyl.
He was like, "Wow, that was a lot stronger than I expected." And that was the last thing to come out of his mouth.
Chelsea said her husband had been complaining about back pain, and his doctor's appointment was weeks away. So he called his friend to get relief. 8 months later, and Chelsea wonders why this woman who gave him the pill hasn't been charged with a crime.
We've been told things like, "Oh, I'm sorry we haven't gotten back to you sooner, but we've had higher priority cases to deal with." And that just tells me that you think that my husband dying, you think that my husband getting murdered is a low priority, and that is unacceptable.
Murder. That word isn't a mistake.
It is. He was poisoned.
Greeley police will only say it is an active investigation and they can't comment.
It's everywhere.
So Chelsea is adding her voice to the story of fentanyl, making up for the loudness that's been lost.
So I don't feel like anybody is too good for this to cross their paths. You just never know.
For Next, I'm Katie Eastman.
Right when Katie met Chelsea at her home in Evans, she got a call about setting up a meeting with a state lawmaker. She plans to lend her voice in support of a bill that would add some harsher penalties to people who deal fentanyl. That bill still has to get through one more committee before it goes to the entire House floor for debate. A man in Parker is accused of spending a year making and selling COVID-19 vaccination cards, fake ones, with the help of someone who has top secret security clearance. A federal criminal complaint says that Robert Van Camp sold those bogus cards to undercover officers on multiple occasions. He allegedly even told one of them that, quote, "Until I get caught and go to jail, I'm taking the money." Between April of last year and this month, he and a co-conspirator are accused of making hundreds of fake vaccination cards using an electronic copy of a blank vaccine card. Most of them were sold in Washington state. They printed them using similar paper and ink. They apparently were visually identical to the real things that are distributed by the CDC. His partner in crime is unnamed in the complaint, but they apparently lived with Van Camp, had top secret security clearance. This pair allegedly made thousands of dollars selling the cards, and Van Camp was arrested this week here in Colorado and was released, had to surrender his passport, and he is under some travel restrictions. Voters are trying to keep a candidate for Congress off of June's primary ballot. Republican State Senator Don Coram turned in petition signatures to qualify for the primary against Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. 4 voters in that district want a judge to remove Coram from the ballot based on issues they have with his petitions. As politics guy Marshall Zellinger shows us, history suggests he could be taken off the ballot and then put right back on.
Congressional District 3, which includes the Western Slope in southern Colorado, is represented by Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. She qualified for the June 28th primary ballot at the Congressional District 3 Assembly a week and a half ago. Republican State Senator Don Coram qualified by turning in more than 1,500 registered Republican signatures. A new lawsuit by 4 voters in Congressional District 3 seeks to get a judge to invalidate some of those signatures. Some of the reasons include the voters who signed were not registered Republicans, notary issues with the person who notarized the petitions, signature discrepancies where the voter listed may not have actually written their name and signed it, and perhaps most notable, circulator address issues. The circulator, the person who collects the signatures, must put their permanent residence address at the top of the petition. This lawsuit challenges that some of the circulators put different addresses, thus every signature they collected should not count.
He needed 1,500 signatures to get on the ballot. The Secretary of State said that he got 1,568. So if the challengers can prove that 69 of the signatures are invalid for some reason, then he'd be thrown off the ballot.
Constitutional law attorney Christopher Jackson explained this case is slightly different than one we reported on 4 years ago, when Republican Congressman Doug Lamborn was briefly taken off the ballot by the Colorado Supreme Court because one of his petition circulators was not from Colorado, even though the voters who signed the petitions were legit.
That should be a lot more important than who's holding the clipboard.
A federal district judge deemed it unconstitutional to require the signature collector to be from Colorado and put Lamborn back on the ballot.
The Lamborn case, the federal court said that petition circulators, they don't have to be residents of Colorado and they don't have to be registered as, Republicans or Democrats in Colorado. And no federal court has addressed whether if a circulator just gives the wrong address, are those petitions invalid.
One of the results of that previous lawsuit was a change in state law to not require a Colorado resident to be the circulator. This is about the address they list regardless of where it is in the country. And Steve, there is a deadline of next Friday before the Secretary of State has to start mailing ballots to military and overseas voters. So expect this to move swiftly through the court.
It's going to be pretty quickly. What do we know about the 4 voters who filed this lawsuit?
Not much about the voters as much as I know about the law firm. It's brought by a former Deputy Secretary of State, Suzanne Taheri, who now works for Maven Law Group. George Brockler is also listed as an attorney. Maven Law Group, separately from this, has been paid $75,000 over time over the last year from Congresswoman Boebert separately for legal fees. And now these 4 voters have gone to a law firm familiar with her to try to get something that could benefit her. But the Congresswoman is not a part of this lawsuit.
It's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out. Marshall, thank you. Well, Kyle is taking some well-deserved time off, but your Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign, it never takes a vacation. Here's Kyle with more on this week's nonprofit.
There's a new development that's breaking ground in Colorado this week where they're really looking for only one kind of resident: veterans without a place to live. The Veterans Community Project Village is going to be a place for veterans facing homelessness to work on their challenges, whether it's addiction or mental health, in a supportive, knowing environment. That's why this week's Word of Thanks campaign is spotlighting the Veterans Community Project breaking ground in Longmont. So picture a village, 26 small homes on 2 acres that surround a community center. You got homes for single vets, homes for families, each place fully furnished with the items that the veterans can take with them when they transition into permanent housing. But first, while they're there, they receive the personalized support they need to address the root cause of their homelessness, all in an environment that honors their service to the country with understanding and support. Veterans Community Project has already built one of these villages in Kansas City, providing that one-on-one support for veterans facing homelessness, as well as guiding them for a year after they leave the village. They're close to raising enough money to fund the project in Colorado, close enough that they can break ground this week, but we can help them get across the finish line so that veterans in our community can start getting that personalized support. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491, and I'll send you the link to donate. As always, we know even $5 helps, so I'll match the first 50 folks in the door with $5 to get us started this week. Veterans experiencing homelessness have particular challenges that can be met by the Veterans Community Project in Longmont, with one-on-one support, a place to call their own, and then some of those comforts of home to take with them when they transition into permanent housing.
Aurora finds someone to lead the police department until a permanent leader can be found. He's a familiar face. Columbine students find ways to give back to honor the 13 lives lost 23 years ago today. And a word about the words we use to interact with complete strangers online. That's next. What's old is new again. The Aurora Police Department has a new interim police chief. He led that department for nearly a decade and helped navigate the city through the worst tragedy in its history. Dan Oates led the department from 2005 to 2014, during which time he led the police response to the July 2012 Aurora theater shooting. 12 people were killed in that attack, and it has left a mark on the city and the people who call it home. Oates is taking over for former police chief Vanessa Wilson, who was fired earlier this month. The city says that the change in leadership won't impact the implementation of a court order to fix how officers use force in that city. Now Oates is in charge of getting officers on board with some of those reforms.
I'm going to start 1 hour, 90-minute one-on-one conversations with each of the command staff, and I'm going to ask them exactly that same question. How did we get, in the 8 years since I left, to the place where we are today? What do you think could be done differently?
Oates is scheduled to have a minor procedure at the end of April. He'll plan on starting May 23rd. Meanwhile, the city management team is conducting a nationwide search for a permanent chief. 23 years ago today, Colorado was struck by unimaginable tragedy. 13 lives lost at Columbine High School on April 20th, 1999. Today, the Columbine girls varsity soccer team went out into the community for a day of service. They spent the day helping out at Praying Hands Ranch in Parker. That ranch and the horses there, they keep children and adults with special needs. They help them out. These students weren't alive 23 years ago, but they know how important it is to honor their school and the lives that were lost.
It helps the Columbine name not be viewed as negative, and rather our support to our community helps us to show that our school isn't defined by the tragedy, and rather show that we can be still positive and give back to our community around us.
Columbine doesn't hold school on this day every year. In order to never forget the lives lost that day, we remember their names one by one. We are getting some feedback about the way I look on TV. 3 separate messages last night commenting on the weight that I have gained lately. David says, I look like I gained more than the COVID-19. Steve wrote, you look like crap, but nothing personal. Jennifer, buy some bigger clothes and love yourself. Well, I do love myself. Have you met me? I didn't need emailers to point out that I've gained some pounds over the last year. I know. Why do you think I've worn a lot of sweaters lately? Kept the playoff beard for several years. Helps with the jawline. I'm working on it, though. But last night's emails did make me think about something I see almost every day on social media. A lot of people like to chime in about the vulnerabilities of others without knowing any backstory, commenting on flaws while having no idea what's really going on in someone's life, in someone's mind. I've had a lot of personal challenges over the last year, and I'm a stress eater. You never know what someone's dealing with that they don't actually talk about. Imagine walking up to a stranger on the street and telling them they're fat, they're loud, they're annoying. Keyboards make it simple to say a few words that are going to have a tremendous impact on someone. So think about that before the next time you hit send.
A weak front brought temperatures down 10 degrees today, but still lots of sunshine, above average readings in the 70s, and low humidity. High fire danger continues even with the advance of that system from the north, tracking a line of severe storms off to the east, but critical fire weather will continue along with wind gusts out of the west from 15 to 30 miles per hour. A high wind watch posted for eastern Colorado tomorrow will switch to a high wind warning on Friday. Critical fire weather conditions shaping up for Friday with highs in the 80s, extremely windy, heading into a cooler weekend with a chance for rain showers both Saturday and Sunday, then back to sunshine and 60s early next week.
26 homes for veterans facing homelessness are almost a reality. We can help get a project that's been a year in the making across the finish line. That's next.
Veterans facing homelessness in our community are going to have a new place where they can find support, understanding from fellow veterans, and a unique path back to a stable life. Veterans Community Project in Longmont is breaking ground this week, a 26-home village surrounding a community center offering one-on-one support to guide veterans out of homelessness. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 to join me in donating. Homelessness in Colorado has many causes, many faces. For those in the ranks of Colorado's homeless who have served our country, the Veterans Community Project in Longmont will be a unique place for them to find stability and care.
Looks awfully pretty. We should get him a microphone. Craig writes in on that, says, today would have been my father's 85th birthday, a career United States Air Force officer and Vietnam vet. Thank you for today's Word of Thanks campaign. Craig, thank you to your father for his contribution to our society. Kevin wrote, if the fire danger continues much longer, we might need to start talking about laser shows instead of fireworks shows. That'd be kind of cool. And Nicole says, what miserable lives people must have to think, much less take the time to write such garbage.